Good morning and welcome to my YouTube video bench. Today on the table I've got a new customer's engine. Aaron, this is your OS FS-120 Surpass with pump that I received just yesterday, and I'm going to do my initial inspection and possibly partially part of the disassembly. I don't know if I'll get to all of it at this time. But, so I mean, this engine looks like it's in pretty decent shape. Let me get a brush here because I'm seeing some debris on it. And as you had mentioned in the email chain that we have going, there was the Woodruff key was lost at some point. I did manage to find one, a spare that was in my OS FT-160 Gemini engine that fit. The one from my 120 pre-Surpass engine didn't even come close. So I do have a Woodruff key installed in here that I'll be taking back unless another one is supplied. I don't know if I'm going to be keeping this for doing runs or not. This thing has really good compression. So we've seen that we've got really good compression. Overall, this engine looks like it's in pretty good shape. I mean, I don't see any real damage to anything at all here. So let's just dive into it. Now also, as I had mentioned, so I'm going to be doing a bearing change and gaskets as requested. But as I mentioned, I do not do... It's not possible to service pumps, OS pumps. They're not user serviceable and they're not replaceable. Just because they're not replaceable because they're not available. So I don't know if I'm going to be able to test this engine for you or not. I can do what we agreed upon, which is replace gaskets and that type of thing. But as far as running it, I'm not sure if that's something that's going to happen or not, just because I can't guarantee this pump works. I've not had a good history with OS pumps. Pumped engines, I don't care for them personally. I don't own them. And that's about all we can say about that. Now this exhaust is... See, that's the thing, is this exhaust looks really rough compared to the rest of the engine. Now this could just be indicative of the fact that whoever had this engine, you know, had it really rich or didn't know what they were doing, or who knows. All I know is this exhaust doesn't seem to match the condition of this engine. Now we'll look inside and see if the top of the piston has a lot of carbon buildup on it, but this is pretty rough looking. I think I can get probably 90% of that off with that good Zep cleaner that Mike has provided to me. And yes, I had to make my own finger cuts from gloves because my thumbs are so cracked and painful, and this is what I'm doing to protect my thumbs. And I don't care how silly it looks because it doesn't really matter to me. What matters is getting my thumbs healed up. So even doing that little type of thing here where I'm just unscrewing something is rather painful. You never know how much you use a part of your body until you've got the slightest little thing, seemingly slightest little thing wrong with it, and it just causes all kinds of discomfort. Now, one of the things I, in the past, would do and would prefer to do, I just don't really have the means to do it at this time, with a Surpass engine, is basically take it out and either run it first and get it up to operating temperature, or at least put it on the stand and spin it over without the glow plug in it to get the mechanical motion of operation going to help loosen that wrist pin or the piston pin. Wow, look at that. Even this nut driver doesn't fit in there. This, just so happens, those that continuously watch my channel, this is the 4-way wrench that I ground down to fit in the top, the front plugs of that Sato 200 Ti engine. And it appears that it was a good thing that I did that, because I needed it for this, because that nut driver was not going to fit. My standard nut driver wasn't going to fit in there. Okay, where do we want to go from here? Let's take this rocker cover off. Let's see what kind of fun things we got going on in here. I really would like to spin this thing over, but I don't have that luxury at this time of the season. So we're going to have to just come up with an alternate means. That doesn't look bad. That really looks pretty nice in there. This one head screw down here is always really tough to get to, because it's almost always is deeper than this L. That looks nice. Yes, I did pop all of these loose first. I wanted to make sure, see what they felt like, to see if I was going to need heat. This looks like it has a gasket on that. This is always interesting to me, because there were some engines that OS would put gaskets on, and then some they wouldn't. Like the smaller ones, like the FS-120, maybe even 26 Surpass. I don't recall seeing gaskets, stock gaskets from OS on those. But then some of these larger engines they did, so. This has definitely got a gasket on it. Bad looking up here. The top end looks pretty good so far. head shim. Here's the underside of the, so we've got quite a bit of carbon buildup here on this exhaust valve. Yeah, boy, I don't know. Top of this piston. It's dry. Very dry. Yeah, so these are going to need, the valves are going to need to be dropped out of here, cleaned up real well. You can see the difference in this, kind of see the difference in the size of the intake valve versus the exhaust valve. The intake valve is like, you know, almost 1.5 times the size of the exhaust valve. It's hard to see the exhaust valve because it's so carboned up. Let's see what this back plate reveals on the inside here. I neglected to go and reference this to get the exact part designation from my OS engine timeline, but I will do that and post that on this video. It looks like an older maybe one of the first style pumped engines they had. Maybe there'll be a review on this engine also that we can look at. This is where it might require a little bit of heat. Yeah, I may have to take this out in the garage and employ a slightly different tactic with some other heating tools to get that thing off. I think what we can do though is we can go ahead and pull. How hot is this? Pretty warm. It's getting pretty warm. Pull this cam cover off here. See if we can coax this thing off. Sometimes these cam covers can be just as stubborn. As we're getting this thing warm, I might as well get some oil. Starting to penetrate into its areas as much as possible. It's really putting pressure on my thumb to do that. So much nicer if you just turn just a hair for me there. Okay, well, instead of wasting more time on this, doing this, I'm just going to have to shut the camera off, and we'll have to get these covers off by another means. Okay, I finally got the cam cover off, timing gear out, and I finally got this rear cover off, and what I had to do is employ a wood block and a hammer to just start loosening it, making it move one way or the other. And then as soon as I got a little bit of a crack in there, I was able to get a lot of oil in there and pull this thing off. So this, let me see if I can't get my blue. I started using anything I could to keep from burning my hands. This doesn't look too horrible in there. The other thing that was nice was that the sleeve pulled right up, but now the woodruff key has come out. Here's, oh, that's hot, really hot. So obviously in the course of doing that, this gasket's gone, which is no big deal. We're going to be replacing that anyway, but here's that thing that engages in the pump. And again, this whole thing is not user serviceable at all, so I can maybe try and clean it up, but I don't want to put it in ultrasonic cleaner at all, because I don't think that would be a good thing for the pump. So I'm not really going to be able to do much of anything with that pump. But I do want to see if I can get this woodruff key back in here, because this sleeve was ready, willing, and able to just come right out. Oh, see, look, right there. I don't need a woodruff key. I can just grab this. So 90% of the hard work is done now. The next most challenging thing will be to get this piston pin out of here, because I'm pretty sure it's not going to want to just give it up easily. And I'm quite confident that this is a pumped engine, that there's no way in hell that this is just going to want to come right off of there. So I'm going to have to extract that piston pin using these means here. Pull that thing out, which I'm just going to go ahead and start oiling the crap out of that. This is the extraction of the piston pin on these Surpass engines is one of the most challenging things and one of the stupidest designs that OS ever did. If they were going to do something like this, why the hell didn't they at least thread that piston pin so you could just put a screw in there and pull it out? This is where, if the engine was in a runnable condition, I would get it running and up to operating temperature and to completely liquefy all of that gunk that's holding that piston pin on there. And that's been always, for me, the best way of getting those out, aside from, you know, this painful method here. So the kicker is try and find a little screw that you can get to get that Teflon retainer out first. And then I have another little tool that Mike showed me how to make that might work. Now, one of the things that always works really good for getting these things out is like a long servo screw, which I just so happen to have one here for such an occasion. Of course, I'm going to have to.
So this is a tool that Mike showed me how to make. You just bend
A piece of metal piano wire, and I cut a little kerf in it here. I'm hoping I can just grab on that pin and pull it out. First, we got to get the retainer out. Maybe I can do this with my fingers. It's a long enough screw.
Okay, so there's our
Retainer. I think I'm just going to leave that screw in there. Just for shits and grins, let's see if I can get any kind of... This thing is just really hot still. Let me just see what that feels like in there. Doesn't feel like there's going to give me any kind of a thing to bite on. Yeah, I may have to try to find some kind of a screw to put in there. Wood screw or something, and try and get a bite in there. And also heat it up. So this is going to be the part that takes the longest to do. And unfortunately, without getting that out, you don't change bearings. So I think we're going to end this video here. And I'm just going to have to work on this some more.